you use a lot of unconventional tools. You know, you use kettlebells, you use maces, but the one thing I think you are known for the most is probably the club bells. And why clubs? And why would those be useful for a jiu-jitsu practitioner?
Okay. So we have three things that I teach a lot is I consider the core things: the kettlebell, the club, and the mace. Think of the kettlebell as an intermediate to heavy weight for most people with a lower level of complexity. If you want to compare this with barbell, barbell is the absolute heaviest with the least amount of complexity. Kettlebell is one step up from that. Heavy club is lighter than a kettlebell with more complexity, and mace is a very light thing with the highest level of complexity. Club has enough weight to give people a very good athletic response and enough complexity to match with every sport on the planet in the least amount of time. So the problem with something like mace is that mace is light, but it's infinitely complex. You tend to need a lot more time in order to get the same type of response that you would get from clubbing. Kettlebells, you can get a higher heart rate, but you can't get the same level of rotation and leverage control that you can get from a club. Wrestling is weight plus leverage control. People have been doing heavy club training for versions of wrestling for all of recorded human history. So we want to emphasize that. So I like to have really tight time management programs for BJJ athletes. Think program that's 20 minutes long. There's a warm up and a cool down on each side, but there's 20 minutes of work in there. We focus on the basic movement patterns of rotating about our central axis, which is the origin of all throwing patterns, inside and outside. So there's actually 4 rotations, like right hand inside towards center line, right hand outside, left hand inside, left hand outside. Those are actually the 4 basic standing rotations, and people tend to be good at one of them. Dominant hand inside, which for 90% of the population is right hand. So people have a direction that their body doesn't turn very well under load. So by doing heavy clubs, we can balance out those rotations equally on all sides, so that when somebody puts you in a horrible position in BJJ and tries to rip your spine out, your spine works equally well on both sides, so that there's not a bad side. Like a lot of martial artists will attack the bad side of somebody because you can see them training. So you're like, he doesn't rotate that way well. So in their game plan, they can decide which way they're going to attack, and they can design their strategy to attack that. Heavy clubs just gives us our basic movement patterns, balancing everything out first, and then ramping up in weight. So I tend to start people, gentlemen tend to start with a 15-pound club. And the goal is to get them to a 50-pound club for the basic 20-minute program that we do. If they get to that, then it does everything else that they do is fine. They could bench, they could do push-ups, they could do dips, they could do pull-ups, but their rotation each way will be extraordinarily good. And then that offset center of mass allows people to be better at picking up odd objects, like other people who are fighting back, and manipulating them without ripping your spine out of the socket.
Man, you said, you know, balancing out both sides of rotation, but I think a lot of the programs that I see online just don't even include any rotation whatsoever. So
and this is the shock to me as a trainer, that the thing that's most likely to hurt people is rotation.
Yeah.
And being better at it is the fastest way to make anybody more athletic in a short period of time. And not just rotation with a lever, because there's med ball rotation and there's all these other things. And if you are not good at rotating one way, your body will compensate and use a different joint structure. And you will end up rotating 2 different ways on 2 different sides of your body. We're just trying to balance that out. And the lever of the club forces you to be honest. If one side is good, you will catch it and balance it easily. If one side is bad, it will be very, very hard. And the club will encourage you. Am I saying that right? Yes. The club will encourage you to have better position on your bad side.
It's almost like self-correcting.
There's no way out of it. It's self-correcting. If we set up the program, we start with a lightweight, we run it, 4 to 6 times per weight for more intermediate to advanced athletes with 3 levels of complexity. There's a much longer version of this program. I'm talking about our program, the mill squat program for
strong and fit. That's right.
Strong and fit. Like that is the absolute minimum program that we talk about. There are 15 moves in it. There's a long version of that program, which I just haven't gotten around to finishing yet because it's so much work to finish it. But 7 levels of complexity times 8, 56 types of rotation as opposed to 15. And so therefore you have years of training. People can do it twice a week. They start with 15. They go up through the weights until they get to a 50. The minimum jump is the recommended jump is 5 pounds between weights. But if you can get it down to 2.5, the result gets even better. People get really, really good at standing basic rotation, which is the origin of striking power, which is the origin of jujitsu throwing power, which is the origin of ground grappling power. So we can it's a simple problem to solve. And I don't know why nobody else is solving it. I see a lot of programs out there that are full of good ideas, and then they leave out the rotation part. And you're